learning way more than I ever intended to about coal. It's been challenging. It's not been an easy task because the learning curve's been big for me, but I think it has been for them too. We understand and we expect there to be some flaws with this. We'll find out. It's not going to be perfect. We know that and kind of anticipated it, but it's going to be better than what we've had. When we were one of the blurring districts, I guess, that we ended up with a coal mine. We have some great people in that field office who was able to step up and handle that. But to learn that stuff has been very challenging. But now we've got a book that it doesn't matter what type of mine they go to, they can inspect out of a book as far as the general procedures go. Because they had to learn not only the regulation for coal, but they also had to learn the ITS and everything else that went along with that. And that was just very burdensome and almost too burdensome for them. They did a great job, and we expect this to help. It gives the inspectors, it empowers the inspectors, and we think that this is a tool that they can be very successful with. And that's what we built this for. We wanted to make sure we could be successful as an agency, but each individual can as an inspector too, to make sure that their decisions matter. So I've appreciated working on this committee with these guys. It's been good. I was part of the bargaining, and that was good. Thankfully, it's all coming to an end, though. But but it has been
good try.
Interesting, and I've learned a lot, and I hope that you guys all will give it a fair chance and be flexible with it. And flexibility is the key, but know that there's going to be issues, but know that we have to be flexible enough to handle those. So that I'll give you Kevin Abel.
I want to reiterate a little bit about what Dustin said, that I think we all learned from each other in doing this a lot. And, we had traded some mines with Carlos's district, and we were back and forth. And one of the issues was the constant calling back and forth. What do you guys do here? What do you guys do here? Was we didn't have that common ground that was this handbook. And now we've got some common ground between, what used to be coal and metal, non-metal, and now it's enforcement. But we've got common ground, and we've got a good way to work with each other on this. It's been a good experience, to say to say the least. But all throughout this, everybody needs to know that we are excited by the prospect of allowing our inspectors, who are as trained as any anywhere and as good as any anywhere, to put their experience and their knowledge to use without the use of a checklist to do everything they needed to do. We trust our people, and I think every person sitting at this table trusts the people that they work with every day. And I trust all of you guys to go out and do the right thing every day. And this is going to allow that to happen without worry as to whether or not a pickup truck that you normally would have liked to have inspected was down at the corner coffee shop getting a cup of coffee. We're going to be okay. But I do want to thank everybody, and I want to thank everyone at headquarters for working with us on this. This wouldn't have gotten done without, this was a pretty quick turnaround for one of these. And it doesn't happen without a lot of help from a lot of people. But thanks to everybody today.
Who are you passing it to? You. I've been talking all, they don't want to hear me anymore right now. You say we had a question, operator?
Yes, we do have 3 questions on the phone.
Okay, just tell them to hold on a second, we'll answer them.
Okay, well, I'll kind of piggyback on what some. There we go. I'll piggyback on what some of the others said, and the key thing to me with this handbook is flexibility. And with that being said, you have to be flexible with yourself, with mine operators, and also with your supervisor. And it's going to require communication, because there's a lot of different ways that things that are written into this handbook can be interpreted. So, communication is essential in making this handbook successful. With that being said, that flexibility allows you guys to go out and inspect the mines at your leisure and in the areas where you think the problems lie and where your efforts need to be focused. And with that being said, probably the best boss I ever had, he had a motto. He said, do the right thing. And I think if you do the right thing, when you go out there and inspect, you do it for yourself, you do it for the miners, and you do it for the mine operators, I think the handbook will be successful. And, you know, lastly, with one of the issues that we always heard with the previous handbook was that it was restrictive and there were so many requirements that were difficult to fulfill. We don't have time to go back and focus on problematic areas. And we feel with the elimination of the ITS, the reduction in note-taking, and the overall reduction in inspection requirements, that this handbook's going to allow you to do that kind of stuff. If you have a mine, for example, say where you're having rock falls and guys are getting hit on the hand when they're roof bolting, guess what? Now you've got 3 or 4 more shifts every quarter or more to go up and spend with those coal miners. And that's where we need to be. We need to be interacting with those coal miners every day, talking to them about their training and their safety. You know, the problems that they're seeing that we're not seeing, because whether we like it or not, it's just a snapshot for us when we're out there. So spend the time with the coal miners, because I think this handbook's going to allow you to do that. And I'm going to turn it over to Ben Harding. Miners, I'm sorry, I apologize. All miners.
It's tough for us to break some of our habits, but it's also tough to come up with something clever to say after this group of speakers and our headquarters folks, and so I won't even attempt to do that. I'll just say it's been an honor and a privilege to some of these guys I knew, some I didn't. It's been great to work with them. Headquarters, the academy, the people out in the field have supported us. Like Kevin said, we couldn't have done it without all of those. I'll show my age a little. I go back to the 95 coal handbook, and I also go beyond the 95 coal handbook when our inspection procedure was a policy manual with a few appendices to show air samples and air readings and rock dust samples. So I know from experience that we can do this, and it's based on what everyone has said. We're freeing our people up. We hire good people. We give good training. We trust our people. It reminds me of when I started. You have a lot of responsibility, and you go out and you make good decisions, and when you need help, everybody helps. So I know this can work. I don't have any doubt about that, particularly with a group like this. So I'm looking forward to that, and I would just say, as far as metal, non-metal, and coal, I'm learning more each day. We have more similarities than we have differences. Some of our differences are large, but 90% of the things we do are the same. So I just appreciate the opportunity and appreciate everyone's help. And I'll turn it over now. Brian.
Well, and I want to reiterate what everyone else has said. You know, we appreciate all the help from headquarters, and I really learned a lot from everyone on the committee here. But the biggest thing that, you know, we tried to make sure that this was back to where work practices. You start looking at, you know, most of our fatals that we have, it's not conditions anymore. It's practices. It's what our miners are doing. And whether it's coal, whether it's metal, I don't care where you're at, practices are practices. And we want to be able to put our inspectors in those places to where they have a better chance of seeing and correcting and fixing these, so we have more miners going home. Because our at the end of the day, our goal was 0. You know, we had 23 miners that didn't make it home this year. And that's 23 too many. And I think the more that we put boots on the ground where we need them, the better off we are. So, I mean, at the end of the day, if we can prevent one less fatality and keep going down that way, I think we've succeeded. And, you know, there's going to be a little bit of, you know, growing pains on both sides. You know, I've heard people say it's a coal manual, it's a metal manual. No, it's an enforcement manual. And we're going to have to get on board, and we're going to have to start, you know, pulling together and doing that way. And at the end of the day, if we do that, I think you'll be surprised how simplified it will be.
Well said. Thanks, everybody. We have 3 more on the phone, I think, so let's go ahead and go to the phone.
First question comes from Wes. Your line is open.
This is Wes in Norman, Oklahoma field office. Some of the guys tinkering with their tablets here in the IAS, the field notes and the daily cover sheet and also citation notes, if you close them, they are not being saved. If you switch to a different area of IAS and don't close it, you can return to your notes and they will be there. But if you close it, they're disappearing. It's not saving them. Also, we had a question. I know we talked about inspecting the mining footprint, but is there any guidance as far as equipment on the ready line or documenting equipment that's out of service or tagged out?
Wes, it's as you encounter it. So if you encounter it, you need to inspect it. If it's not in service, just mark not in service.
Okay.
As far as the IS goes, yeah, I was saying, as far as the IS goes, just reach out to me and we can take a look what's going on there. And this is Ibrahim.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, we know there's gonna be a few bugs still worked out. I mean, this was a pretty quick turnaround and a high demand on Pier to make these changes in short notice. Just as we do anytime we release something, we fix one thing and sometimes 3 things break. So we're just gonna have to work through it. If you get those kind of problems or you recognize that stuff, email them in to Ibrahim and we'll get somebody working on it and we'll get it fixed.
Yep. We did test it out that it was saving when we were uploading, so we'll just be looking at that device, what's going on, so we'll let you know.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on the phone?
Yes, the next question comes from Bob. Your line is open.
Yes, we're still having some confusion when we talk about as encountered. If I can give you an example of an inspection day, we maybe have plans to go to Unit 5, and we have large mines, so we enter the mine, and we may encounter 15 man trips, 2 scoops, 3 tractors, diesel bolter. So when to say encountered, how is an inspector supposed to figure out, yes, I have encountered it, that was not my purpose of the inspection that day, but I did encounter that, so therefore should he be stopping and taking care of the ones he has encountered, or should he make a note that he encountered it so it's operating and get to it later? So we still have a little problem with the definition of encountered.
All right, Bob, that's let me simplify it for you. Is the intent that you're making that travel to inspect that air course, or are you just traveling to another area of the mine? You said you're going to 5 section?
Yes.
All right, so if you're going to 5 section, just because you pass the man trips or you pass equipment operating out by, here, you pass equipment that's operating out by, just because you encounter it doesn't mean you have to inspect it. But if you're inspecting an air course for the purpose of inspecting that air course, we would anticipate that whatever you encounter that day, that you inspect it. Now, if you've already inspected something in that air course and you know you've inspected it through either your personal knowledge, a checklist that you and coworkers have developed, or whatever else you know to make sure you don't do that redundantly, then don't worry about it. You don't need to document it. You don't need to do anything with it.
So are we going to specifically have days where we say we're going to go do out by equipment, or we're going to do man trips or scoops, or are we still going to have those type of inspection days?
You could, if you feel that's a need for the facility that you're inspecting, by all means you could do that. It's not a requirement. The minimum is you inspect, the footprint of the mine, and as you're doing that footprint inspection, whatever you encounter, you inspect that day. I mean, we know in a large mine, there's going to be numerous days you're going to pass man trips, rock dusters in an underground coal mine, graders working on roads. You're going to pass stuff in your destination to other parts of the mine. That as encountered is really designed for when you're inspecting that air course as your daily purpose, as your purpose for that day. or that area.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
The next question comes from the Salt Lake City Field Office. Your line is open.
Yeah, my question is, we have a open inspection for a coal mine before this meeting today. What's the guidance on the continuing of this inspection? Follow this handbook from here on out?
No, anything that started before January 2nd or whatever the date was, you finish it under the handbook and the vent sheets and whatever else that was in place at the time you started that inspection. You finish your ITS. Everything that was in place before we release this is the guidance you follow until it's closed. That's why we left the ITS open until April 1st, to be able to close out anything that was a carryover.
All right.
Any other phone questions?
As a reminder, for those on the phone, to ask a question, please press star 1. At this time, there are no further questions.
What is it? Okay. I guess if there's no other phone questions, any more questions here in the audience? I appreciate the assistance setting in. I know that not all this is something that they're wanting to listen to, but there are some guidances. You're the first person that they're going to come to when they have these problems and issues, and you generally help rule the office, so to speak, with knowledge. So appreciate you all taking the time out to sit in on this training. Academy staff, same thing. Appreciate you guys. You're going to be the mouthpiece moving forward, so we appreciate you all coming in here. I greatly appreciate these guys up here on the table. As they said, it was an interesting experience at first, and a lot of misunderstandings in the beginning, but we kind of got together and figured out what we needed to do, and have done formed a nice bond as a team, I think. I got to thank Paul for helping facilitate some things and streamlining some things through headquarters. I'm also going to throw out one to, if anybody knows them, Ed Elliott and Maynard St. John, who kind of helped us start this project. Those guys were instrumental in getting us started as well. Ibrahim, I'm glad you came yesterday. You were a great help with getting us set up and moving. Tim, I think, is wanting to say something. Okay, Tim was wanting to close a little bit, but I think, where are we at with? Let me let Mike Abraham have it for a second. I think there's something that Syed would like to talk about and demonstrate as soon as we close, or... Oh, you're just doing that? Okay, so never mind. That won't be on the WebEx. That'll be something that's local here. So I guess with that, I appreciate your time. I hope we didn't leave too many questions unanswered. I remind you of the email. We will follow up on those and get answers for things that we didn't answer during the presentation. So with that, I'm going to give it to Mr. Watkins, since I can find a microphone. Oh, he's got one.
Got one. Thank you. First of all, I want to thank the folks here for putting on this training. I think you can tell by the presentation itself and their ability to answer the question that a lot of thought and a lot of preparation has went into this handbook. It's not something that was taken lightly. Every word, every section of it was looked at closely. You know, some of them not close enough, but we looked at them all very closely. This team done an excellent job for the amount of work and the time frame that they had to get it together. Yes, exactly. And as Ms. Sylvia just pointed out, I think this training, I think everybody would agree that it's been very interactive. The ability to answer the questions on the fly and give appropriate and correct responses is imperative with any type of training. So I think that is a very good addition. I appreciate you guys and the effort that you put in. I'm glad you mentioned Ibrahim. I'm sorry that I left his name off this morning, but Ibrahim has been very instrumental in this whole process. He has been and will continue to be the link between you, the enforcement group, and peer to make sure that all this stuff in IAS and all these other applications get corrected. But just in closing, there's one word that I want to mention. I think this handbook and this process enables us to do that hasn't been mentioned. We use the word flexibility a lot. That is a key word. The other one's quality. We didn't mention quality. I do believe that having the flexibility to adapt the way we do our inspections, limit some of the documentation that has been required in the past, will allow us to provide better quality inspections at the mine site. Regardless of whether it's coal, metal, non-metal, it doesn't matter. So, you know, the flexibility is a good thing. And with the quality, along with that flexibility comes quality. And I think that's what we all would want and are striving for. So, in that, we'll close it up. Again, thank you, Carlos, and your group for a job well done.
I think that,
We'll end the WebEx here.
yeah, we're gonna end the WebEx and the phone calls now. Again, if you have questions, use the email device, and thank you for your attention and participation.